Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Nicole, and today I am going to be tier ranking all the Mammoth books that I've read or DNF'd or at least attempted to read. So these are books that are all over 800 pages long. I've created some fun categories to divide them into, and I thought I'd share it with you because I know a lot of people don't read big books, and especially not books over 800 pages long because they're worried about whether or not the investment is worth it. So I'm going to go through the books that I've read because I love reading super long books. I quite enjoy them, but in all fairness, they don't always work out. So you're right to be worried about that. So I'm going to go through the books and I'm going to share them with you and how I rank them so that hopefully, if your reading taste is similar to mine, you'll at least know some that might be worth your time. So before we get going, let's talk about what I've set up as our categories. And I should completely admit that these are all words and phrases that are been Fold 5 songs. So flashback to the 90s and early 2000s for me when that was like one of my favorite groups. And I think he's now like a solo artist, which is fine with me as well. Anyway, if you know the songs, then it will all make sense. And if you don't, I'll explain it in brief. So magic is, well, yeah, these are books that are just magic somehow, and I will read again and again for the rest of my life. Fair is just what it sounds like. All is fair in love and war. These are songs. These are books that are like fair. They're good. Like I can't complain. I probably won't read them again, but I would still recommend them. And I think they're a pretty good way or place to start. And if your tastes don't line up exactly with mine, these are still books that I think are fair, and you could very well like them better than I did. Then there is The Battle of Who Could Care Less. Yeah, these are books that I finished, but honestly could just care less about. Like, I didn't dislike them, but you know how it is. Some books just leave you kind of like, yeah, okay, fine, whatever. And then we get into the two categories of books that, yeah, no, wow, time suck, wish I had my money back, had my time back, all the things. Starting with books that were bricks. Like they literally were bricks and they felt like a brick that, like the song says, is pulling me down and I'm drowning slowly. Yeah. In fact, that might have been a better use for these bricks. And then the final category is the category of Song for the Dumped. And if you know the lyrics to this song, then you know exactly how I feel about these books. So that's all I'm going to say about those category titles, but you can look up those songs and see what you think about them. But in the meantime, let's start talking about the books on this list. I am going to try not to go into great detail about what any of these books are about and just try to touch on briefly why I'm putting them where they are. And you may very well disagree with some of my sorting. And I'm just going to go in the order that they're here at the bottom of my screen, starting apparently with Les Mis. And ooh, this is already going to be a controversial one because people love this book and the musical and all the things. I love the musical, but the book for me is fair. I don't know if that shocks anyone, but the reason is I think it's a really good book. I'm not a fan of Victor Hugo's tangents, and I don't think I can mentally put myself through that again. This is definitely a book that was like the most fun I never want to have again ever. Like I will never reread that book, and if I do, I will probably only do an abridged edition. I know. Okay, 1Q84. Yeah, no, that got dumped. I don't even need to think about that. As the song says, give me my money back. Oh, yeah. I DNF'd that book. In fact, every book that's on this list that I DNF'd is going to be in that bottom row, but it will have some friends to join it. Don't worry. Oh, look, here's a friend right here. At the top of that list, let's even move it like that, would be Gone with the Wind. And I'm not going to get into why I have problems with Gone with the Wind and think it's a problematic book. Other people have discussed this, and I will link in the description box a video that I think does a wonderful job of explaining why this book is on my list of Song for the Dumped. Okay, next I have The Tale of Genji. This is a tough one for me, but I would put it as magic. There is something magical about the writing of this book, the artistry of how the poetry is interwoven in it, and just the idea of beauty in it. Yes, the main character himself is problematic, but that gets acknowledged sometimes in the book, but it's also the truth of what court life was like at that time. All right, Getting off that tangent, let's move on. Arabian Nights. Ooh, would I read Arabian Nights again? Would I say it's magic? Yeah, I would say it's magic. Like, there's even magic in it. I don't know that I would reread all of Volume 1 of Arabian Nights, but there are stories in it that I like that I definitely would reread. Okay, next up, our mutual friend. Oh, oh gosh, this is a tough one for me. It's not a brick. I mean, it is a brick in size, but could I care less about this? Is it fair? It's definitely in one of those two categories. I wish I could put something on the line. Um, I'll put it at the end of fair. It's coming close to I could care less about the book. I can see why some people like it. I'm not a big fan of Charles Dickens' later works, is what I'm discovering. Okay, the Decameron. This is one that I DNF'd, but I would retry because at the time that I read it and DNF'd it, I wasn't expecting some of the topics and I didn't like it for that reason. But I feel like maybe I'd be able to approach it with a different feel this time. I don't know, but since I did DNF it, I will put it at um I'll put it on the song for the dumped because I don't know. I don't know. And I did dump it. All right, The Mysteries of Paris. Oh man, this is a book that's better read with a friend. Thank you, Stormy. Sadly, it's who could care less. Like it had some really good redeeming points, and then it had some things that were super frustrating about it. I'm glad I read it. I would never read it again, and I don't know that I could fairly recommend it to anyone. So there's that. All right, then we have Clarissa. Oh, Clarissa, I am reading for the second time. Is it magic? I don't know yet. I don't know. I'm hoping it will be, and I'm hoping it's going to be as magical as it was the first time. I will say when I first read it, this book was magic for me. Like it was like I don't know, something that I really wanted. Right now, I think I'm going to put it at the top of fair though because I don't know. I haven't finished my second reread. So, I don't know. Or maybe I should put it at the end of magic. I'll put it at the end of magic because I am rereading it. So, there. Yeah. Okay. The Books of Jacob. Yeah, I also dumped this one. I I don't know if again this was like the Decameron. It was just the time that I read it at, and my brain just wasn't firing on all cylinders. But I read the opening pages of that book, probably the opening 50 pages over and over, and it made no sense to me. So I don't know what to make of that. Um, I'm still really torn on those two. I'm gonna move the Decameron up to it's a brick. It's a brick. I was and I'm gonna move the Books of Jacob up there too. I don't feel like they're on the same level as Gone with the Wind and 1Q84. I just feel like they were weighing me down. And I was struggling to stay on the surface with them. I yeah, okay, they were a brick. They were a brick. Okay, The Fire Pavilions. I have read this before. I recall thinking it's fair. I want to reread it. I did restart it at one point, but was struggling just with the formatting of the physical book. But where I got so far in the book, which was like 100 pages in, I was still feeling like it was going to be a pretty fair read. So I'll leave it there for now. It's something I have to pick back up. Anna Karenina, that is definitely magic. That will go at the top there. One of the most magical books that I've read. Definitely not the most magical, but it's up there. A Suitable Boy, that is really up there too. I think that would go between Anna and The Tale of Genji. All right, we have Nicholas Nickleby. Oh, there is something magical about this book, but I would put it after the Arabian Nights because I loved this book. It reminded me a lot of another book, but so much so that I know I like the other book better, so I don't know if I'd reread Nicholas Nickleby, but it was a magical experience reading it for the most part. Okay, then we have The Garden of Seven Twilights. Yeah, that is a song for the dumped. It's not as intense a feeling as Gone with the Wind or 1Q84, but it just was a book that wasn't for me. I personally found it boring, and even though it has a structure that I like in terms of how the story is formatted and set up with embedded narratives, I just didn't like the embedded narratives. I found it boring. War and Peace. War and Peace is magic for me. I like it. Ooh, where does it go? what would I reread first? Anna Karenina, and then War and Peace. No, maybe A Suitable Boy. Yeah, let's put it there. Okay, Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. Ooh, this might be an unpopular opinion because people love this book. I could care less about it. It wasn't a bad book. I just thought it was okay. And compared to some of the other books that I have read that are as long as that, there are aspects of it in terms of like going back and forth between war that I think War and Peace does better. There are aspects in terms of like the time period and fantasy elements that I think the Arabian Nights does better. And in terms of having like a nice cast of characters, A Suitable Boy is better at that. So I could just think of a lot of books that I would rather read that are that long, that are better books. Like the next one, David Copperfield. This is the top of magic. In fact, if I could put it over the word magic, I would do that. And it would just be like books that are David Copperfield to me, though that row would then be empty because it would only be different pictures of David Copperfield. But anyway, yeah, that's my number one most magical book ever. I've yet to read a book that I have enjoyed every single page of from beginning to end, loved every moment, hated people, loved people, laughed, cried, sometimes at the same time. Let me stop now. David Copperfield. All right. 4321. I read that this year. That was surprisingly good book. I really liked it. I would I reread it? Ah, was it magical? I'm gonna put it at the top of fair. I don't know that I would reread that book. And I feel like that magic line, there's gotta be at least some part of the book that I would reread. I will hold on to 4321. It is still on my shelf. I don't honestly know if I'd ever reread it. Okay, Forever Amber. Oh gosh, now I know exactly where this goes. She is again like David Copperfield could be the picture of a brick. That was how I felt reading almost this entire book, is that it was just weighing me down to a slow and steady sure death. There was just, it's not a bad book. It's like, it's fine. It's a historical romance. It's written just fine. It's, the rags to riches, questionable life woman who, love of her life, blah, blah, blah. It was just Amber. It was just Amber herself drove me crazy. So let me give you this warning. You may like this book, especially if you like historical romance or you just like historical fiction. You may like this book. Okay. I'm not going to deny that. But if you do not like Amber at the beginning of the book, DNF that girl because she will not get better. You will not like her at the end of the book either. Don't say I didn't warn you. Okay. Bleak House. Um, uh, I liked it better than Our Mutual Friend. It's part of the most fun I'd never want to have again. So it's in that troop. I didn't like it as much as Les Mis. And you know what? I liked Les Mis better than 4321. So yeah, there we go. And Ladies of the Club. Yeah, no, mm-mm. Yeah, no. I read that book once and remembered nothing about it, and made the mistake of reading it again. And you know what? I don't want my money back from it, but it's definitely right up there next to Amber, where I just feel like it was a slow, steady suffocation reading that book. Just again, don't do it. You've been warned. Okay, Trinity by Leon Uris. This was a really good book. I don't imagine myself reading it again. And I liked 4321 better. But if you want to read about historical fiction that is set in and about Ireland, I personally think it's really good for that. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. It was horribly sad, but really good. Okay, Don Quixote. I am in the middle of reading this like Clarissa. So at one point it was magical. But guys, I'm really afraid that it's going to end up being fair. Um, I when I started reading this said that I had been hearing that a lot of people were reading it and saying they didn't like the second half as much as the first half, and I don't recall having that experience in my first reading. I really still don't recall having that experience in my first reading of it. I'm having that experience in my second reading of it at this point. I have 200 pages left, and it is the longest 200 pages of my life. I've finally given up and decided to just get the audiobook to help me finish the last 200 pages. Even though I'm now on hold for that for the next 4 weeks, I don't care. I cannot make myself read the last 200 pages of that book. So there you go. And then the Count of Monte Cristo. I know exactly where this can go. He can get settled right up there next to Davy. Those are two of the most magical, amazing mammoth books that I have read. If you want to try a mammoth book and you don't know what to read, if I had to say, just start with one of these two. Those would be the two. And the nice thing about them is they cover like both sides of the spectrum. One, David Copperfield, is a character based novel. The other one, The Count of Monte Cristo, is pretty much a plot driven novel. So pick which one you want and enjoy all the hundreds and hundreds of pages of magic that you get. If those don't sound up your alley, look at any of the other ones in the magic row, and hopefully you will find that there is something in them that is magical for you as well. If none of those seem interested, go for the fair row. Like, tastes vary. These are all fair. I think the most contemporary of those two top rows would be 4321. That is definitely a bit more postmodern, semi stream of consciousness, like no quotation marks kind of thing going in that direction, but still is readable, I think, for most people. So that would be a good option if you don't like classic novels, as would be Trinity. I personally would pass on everything from the Battle of Who Could Care Less and lower. So that's just me. So that is it. That's where I turn out. I'm going to download this so that I have this for the future to think about when I go to reread one of my mammoth books. Let me know if you have read any of these books and if there's something on here that you're like, oh no, I put this at the top and that at the bottom or whatever. And yeah, let me know if you've read any mammoths that are on here that you have loved and considered magical, and maybe I'll give them a try sometime. And I will talk to you later.